From being as light as a feather to being absolutely massive, Conor McGregor's body transformation is mysterious to say the least. Today, we'll be talking about why it's caused such a stir. If you didn't know, Conor McGregor is not a big guy. In fact, he's only 5'8". If you've seen him in recent years and didn't know of him in the past, you may assume he's always been a big dude. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. McGregor is the biggest name in UFC history and has fought in multiple weight classes. His jumps from featherweight to lightweight to welterweight and even hints at middleweight are a big part of the reason fans love him. It's common in combat sports to cut serious weight before fights. The reason for this is simple. If someone who's, let's say, naturally 175 pounds cuts down to welterweight, 170, they're likely to be fighting guys who are cutting from a much heavier weight. Instead, they'll probably cut to 155, which is lightweight, so they have the advantage there. Some see this as a form of cheating, but as of now, it's entirely legal, and the sport even encourages it. However, over the years, we've seen some guys take this a little too far. Guys like Darren Till, Khabib, and Paulo Costa are a few names that have been known to cut a little too much weight. McGregor used to be in this bracket too, with guys who cut ridiculous amounts of weight to meet the limit. As mentioned earlier, McGregor is only 5'8", so featherweight sounds about natural for him, at least when he started his career. When you see Conor back when he was younger, fighting in organizations like Cage Warriors, he was skinny, to say the least. And 145 pounds definitely looks like his proper weight class. The problem arises as young fighters get older, start earning money, and can afford proper nutrition. They just naturally get bigger, making it harder to reach the weights that were once natural for them. So, in McGregor's case, once he became the Cage Warriors featherweight champion, he struggled to make the weight. He decided to move up to lightweight, 155 pounds, and managed to take that belt too. So by the time he made his UFC debut in 2013, he was a lot bigger than featherweight, but still chose to cut a lot of weight to get there. If you look at some pictures of young Conor making featherweight in the UFC, it looks like something out of a horror film. No joke, he looks shriveled up and not much different from a skeleton. The main reason for this is that fighters dehydrate themselves before weigh-ins to ensure they hit the weight. The more weight they have to cut, the more nightmarish they look. Props to McGregor, though, he's never once missed weight. A true professional. You might be doubting whether his weight cut is as bad as we think. Think again. Even his coach has expressed relief that he's no longer cutting down to those really low weights. John Kavanagh, McGregor's coach and head of SBG Ireland, had a few things to say about the extreme weight cut. It's not healthy. It's not for the long term. I would encourage you to look at his recent Instagram pictures. Look how big and strong he looks. That's what it is to be a fighter. Well, we've got to agree with you, Kavanagh. He definitely looks big and strong. Maybe a tad too big. We'll get to the steroid accusation shortly, but let's finish off discussing his crazy jump in weights. Some fighters like Israel Adesanya, Max Holloway, and many others chose not to have crazy weight cuts, and their size doesn't increase much throughout their whole career. This could be a conscious choice, but it's also strange that McGregor goes from knocking Aldo out at 145 to having his next fight a few months later at 170 against Nate Diaz. That's a 25-pound difference. It can't be easy going from fighting at one weight for the majority of your career to jumping up 2 weight classes. We've got to take our hats off to the old McGregor, though. Come on, who else would take a short-notice fight against a guy like Nate Diaz? Not 1, but 2 weight classes above him. So, it was no surprise he lost, and he never went back to featherweight after that. Many think this first fight with Diaz and then the rematch after were the reasons for this. He probably just put a lot of water weight on for the first fight, as it was such short notice. Then for the second, he had a proper training camp. He knew cardio was going to be an issue, so if he wanted to win, he couldn't just pack on the pounds. He had to do it, well, I was going to say naturally, but that's up for debate. Let's say properly. At least he would have had to eat loads of food and lift heavy weights. So that takes us to where he is now. From being borderline anorexic at featherweight to looking like he could compete in bodybuilding competitions. Why then is everyone nowadays accusing him of taking steroids? Well, if you look at, say, his fight against Aldo and his fight against Diaz, there's a 25-pound gap. He does look a lot bigger in the Diaz fight, but he didn't have the bulging biceps and huge thighs he's got now, and he wasn't getting anywhere near as many steroid accusations back then. Well, except for Diaz, who famously said everyone's on steroids, and his coach, who outright accused McGregor, said that a jump in weight wasn't possible. These days, though, everyone is accusing McGregor. From Joe Rogan to other fighters, many have had something to say about his transformation. One guy who had a lot to say was Jorge Masvidal. It's important to note that McGregor's serious body transformation began after he fractured his tibia at UFC 264 and has been sidelined since. McGregor, who is not fighting, is never shy to call out pretty much everyone. And when Jorge Masvidal heard that he was suggesting a fight at his weight of 170, he was not impressed. The BMF title holder said that despite knowing that McGregor is obviously on steroids, he's still a little guy, and he'd be happy to welcome him back to welterweight. I have a little size, although now he's puncturing and putting steroids and all kinds of things, but he is still a little boy, says Masvidal. When you look at pictures of McGregor after his leg injury, around when the steroid accusations began, it's clear that something fishy is going on. There's no way a man can get that big that fast. However, some have come out to defend Conor McGregor. When McGregor snapped his leg in half against Dustin Poirier, he vowed that he'd be back stronger than ever and quicker than ever. He had a similar thing when he fought Holloway and had a similar injury all those years ago. He vowed to break the record for the quickest recovery ever. And on both occasions, he'd done it. Is it his top-quality medical care, sheer willpower, or something slightly less heroic? Who knows? But he's managed to recover faster than ever both times. So some people think using steroids to help his body heal isn't a bad thing. He's been reluctant to enter the USADA testing pool, which he'll have to do if he wants to compete again. Some fighters think that's completely unfair, as he's still on the UFC roster, and every fighter has to be tested whether they've got a fight or not. McGregor's used to the special treatment, though. Only he knows if he's really on steroids, but he is not happy about being accused of it. His ongoing feud with Joe Rogan has been getting worse. Joe Rogan joked on his podcast that Conor's pee would melt the USADA cup, referring to his massive bulk up of 40 pounds in a very short space of time. According to Joe Rogan, Conor is absolutely on steroids, but thinks it's probably to help his leg heal, which is still illegal, by the way. Conor was not happy about this, and proceeded to mock Joe's own steroid use, and how he's been part of the UFC for years and has been too scared to fight. The two used to be on great terms, but in recent years, things have started to turn sour. Nevertheless, that's where we're currently at with Conor's insane body transformation. All signs seem to be pointing in one direction, but I guess time will tell. So, from cutting weight in a dangerous way to accusations of steroid use, these were the reasons why Conor McGregor's massive body transformation has caused a stir.